For many years, China's men's national football team has been a source of deep disappointment for fans. Materials for satire, and more recently, the subject of crime stories on national television. As the Paris Olympics kick off, hundreds of Chinese athletes are once again competing for gold, but not the men's football team. They were eliminated in the qualifying rounds. So, for a country of 1.4 billion that has produced so many Olympic medalists, why can't China find 11 players who can excel at the beautiful game? To get a sense of how dire people think the situation is, here is the most circulated rant about Chinese football.
职能部门一届换了多少个足球协会主席了？改过不了？换汤不换药啊！下去我要输越南了。泰国队输完输越南，再输缅甸，现在没人输了，脸都不要了。
Fan was part of China's 2002 World Cup squad, the only Chinese men's side to ever reach the World Cup finals. Back then, China's football team was ranked 63rd in the world, but in 2024, it has dropped to 88th, behind countries like Haiti and Curacao, not to mention its neighbors Japan and South Korea. Since 2019, the Chinese men's national team has had 5 head coaches. Fans' interview was even broadcast on a state-owned television channel in Shanghai. Such sharp criticism of a national team on official media is rare in China. In 2022, the men's national team would go on to fulfill fans' pessimistic prophecy when it lost to Vietnam for the first time in its history.
Good. Nice.
Contrary to popular belief, football just isn't that popular in China. Compared with other countries, not many Chinese people actually play the game.
I think there are a couple of reasons behind, such as lack of facilities, lack of qualified coaching staffs, the turbulence and scandals happening in the Chinese football, not really building a steady environment for the sports to grow. And I think the most pressing one is probably the lack of youth participation, especially at the grassroots level.
In 2016, the Chinese government published a blueprint for the nation's football development. Authorities vowed to build 20,000 football schools, build over 70,000 football pitches, train over 50 million players, of which 30 million would be elementary and high school students. The aim was for China to become a football superpower by 2050. On paper, a lot of these goals were accomplished. The country had over 120,000 football pitches as of 2021, 30,000 schools with football as part of the curriculum and regular matches, over 55 million students playing football. But while those targets have been met, the country's national football program has not seen significant improvements. Experts said the problem lies in how the policies and reforms have been implemented. Like many other economic and industrial plans in China, sports programs follow a top-down approach. That means the government hands down an outline with goals for related bodies to accomplish. This approach succeeded in delivering a world-class infrastructure network and building world-dominating electric vehicles, but not a world-class football team.
People basically take signals from above. Football is the exact opposite in terms of how it normally develops. It'll be like a kind of KPI approach. Have you developed 5 good players in the past year? Tick. Have you invested X amount in the system in your local area? Tick. Have you incorporated football in your curriculum? How many hours have you put in it? It needs to be arranged in such a way that people have the space.
This kind of approach will sometimes result in school participation in football that looks like this. China's grueling exam-oriented education system also discourages participation. State media reported many students dropped out of youth football programs because of academic pressure.
I think the culture definitely plays a big part of that. To many in China, the education is always prioritized. There's not a very clear path to succeed in football as a young player. So many families, they probably don't want their kids to take the risk.
In short, the huge investments never materialize into a steady stream of young players. But Chinese football did have its moments after Beijing vowed staunch support for the sport. In the years that followed, an astronomical amount of money flooded China's football clubs. In January 2017, Chinese clubs lavished over $438 million on players, dwarfing the $268 million spent by teams in the English Premier League. Clubs built giant football stadiums that could accommodate as many as 100,000 fans. Recruited international football stars like Brazilian footballer Oscar from Chelsea and set up top football schools. These clubs will go on to win not only titles in China, but also top tournaments such as the AFC Cup. For a moment, it seemed China could buy its way into world domination.
We are the champion! 广州市冠军! Yeah!
But then in 2021, a crisis developed in China's property sector. At the time, 10 out of 16 clubs in the Chinese Super League were at least partly owned by real estate companies.
There was absolutely no way they could possibly make this money back. You're talking, most clubs are selling a season ticket for less than 1,000 RMB. You just compare that with the players' salaries, investment.
The most high-profile case was Evergrande, owner of Guangzhou FC, after it shocked the world with its huge debt and thousands of unfinished apartment blocks. Most of the football stars left and construction of the team's new stadium halted. And the Chinese Super League 2021 champion Jiangsu FC just simply folded because its owner was in a financial mess after investing billions into one of Evergrande's subsidiaries and declining business within itself.
The main problem is that the investment was not for football's sake. They would put money into the football clubs. It wasn't because they had a real, genuine love for football or even a desire to really see Chinese football improve. They just thought this was a way to help them get ahead with their business or their political aspirations.
But the bubble created by disgraced property moguls is not the sole cause of China's football woes. Experts suggest the laser focus on the national team is actually counterproductive. The Chinese Super League is occasionally interrupted by the national team's training camps, which can sometimes last more than a month. And in some instances, clubs' performance suffer because their top players were summoned to the national team.
The national team really needs a system underneath it which generates talents for the national team. When you play with a national team, you're training for 2 weeks, but training is not as good as playing an actual real game. If you make your local football club successful, then this is a way to advertise a potential career in football for all the kids who live in this part of China.
Perhaps the hope for Chinese football lies in this small town in the nation's southwestern province of Guizhou. The Village Football League has grown from friendly matches between villages to a national event that has movie stars and even retired international players such as Kaká taking turns on the pitch.
有群众基础的这些活动，它就肯定会有生命力。但是这里的氛围比那里的氛围要棒。
I think there are many other ways we can promote the grassroots participation. This does not only need to happen in the school or in the football academies. And it's important to see how the people can leverage the football to benefit other sectors such as tourism and also like the education. So we can get more stakeholders involved to grow the sports collectively.
Whether China's men's football team can become a serious contender on the world stage remains to be seen. But here, the sport seems to have returned to its purest form: joy, passion, and excitement.